welcome back to my channel. So as promised, I am filming my worst books of 2021. As you guys know, if you guys are subscribed, you saw my best books of 2021, which I uploaded not too long ago. So this is the promised worst books. Next I plan to do the top 10 books I want to read in 2022, and then I'm also going to go through my reading journal stats that I keep, and it's kind of like all like the fun little numbers and stuff like that. That's just really fun to look at the end of the year. So I'm going to be uploading that as well. So if you guys are interested, don't forget to subscribe and also press the bell notifications. Like I said in my last video, I do plan to upload to this channel more often next year and do more than just wrap-ups. I do a lot of wrap-ups on this channel because I love wrap-ups, and I want to do more videos that aren't just wrap-ups, more hauls and maybe like reading vlogs, read with me videos, stuff like that. So definitely subscribe and press the bell notifications if you guys want to see all that kind of stuff. So let's go ahead and just jump into my worst books of 2021. Okay, so the first book that I want to talk about in this video is Shiver by Junji Ito. So as you guys know, Junji Ito is a very popular horror graphic novel writer or manga writer, and I want to like his stuff so badly. I read Tomi last year, and then this year I read Shiver because I saw it at my library, so I just picked it up. And for some reason, we just do not mesh well together, and I don't know why. There's just something missing for me within his like stories, and I can't really put my finger on what it is. Now, don't get me wrong, I did like Shiver more than I liked Tomi. I really wasn't a huge fan of Tomi. I liked the general idea of Tomi, but I kind of felt like that graphic novel was so long and so repetitive, and we didn't get a lot of answers about who Tomi was and stuff. But Shiver, I felt like, was very similar in that like you didn't get a lot with each story. Like each story was kind of like nerve-wracking and like kind of scary-ish, but like they were so simplified because each story was so short that I kept feeling like I wanted a little bit more with each story. And I just for some reason don't feel overly creeped out by Junji Ito's stuff, and I'm not really sure why that is. I don't know if I'm just not a horror person, or maybe I'm not a horror graphic novel person. Like, I think maybe for me, for like reading horror, I need novels that really, really dive deep into the story and like can really, you know, build up the characters and like be a little bit more descriptive and stuff like that to really make me feel scared. And I just don't think I get that with Junji Ito. There was one story actually in Shiver that did creep me out a little bit, and it was the greased story. That one was really gross, and it did kind of like make me cringe a little bit, but that was like the only story that I really felt fear with. And if I'm being honest, like I can't remember any of the stories in this graphic novel other than Greased. So if that doesn't tell you something, I don't know what does. I just feel like it was pretty forgettable for me. I don't know what it is. It's just me and Junji Ito just don't really mesh well together, but I still want to try reading the Spiral one. I think that is Uzumaki, I think, or maybe it's the other one, I don't know. But I do want to try that one, and then if I don't like that one, then I might just give up on Junji Ito altogether and just admit that he's not mine. I do like his art though. Like I have this Twisted Visions book up here that is all of his art, like horror art. I just don't like the stories that go along with it for some reason. They just don't do it for me. I don't know why. Okay, so the next book is Emergency Skin by N.K. Jemisin. This is a short story that was part of like a group of stories that came out that Blake Crouch curated, and they're kind of like these sci-fi kind of interesting stories. And you guys know I'm a huge Blake Crouch fan. Like I love Blake Crouch so much. He's actually coming out with a new book in 2022, and I'm so excited. I think it's 2022. It's called Upgrade, and I cannot wait for it because I love, love, love Blake Crouch. But N.K. Jemisin wrote a little short story for this, you know, group of work, and I just wasn't a huge fan of this. This actually was everyone's favorite. Like every single person that I read all their reviews, you know, for each of these little stories, everyone said that this one was their favorite, or a lot of people said this one was their favorite. And I think the reason I didn't like this one, if I'm being honest, is it felt very agenda driven. Like she wasn't really caring so much about the story and the intricacies of the story and all the little like plot points and plot holes and just how a story like this could actually play out and like the little subtleties that would happen in this world that she created. Like I just kind of feel like everything that she was trying to say in this book was very heavy-handed and just like handed to you on a silver platter. There was no subtlety, not focused on any nuance that a story like this should have in it, because this type of story needs to be nuanced, and she did not want to add any nuance in because she really wanted to force a certain like narrative onto you, if that makes sense. And I just don't like writing like that because nothing is black and white, and she was really unwilling to look at the gray areas. And I feel like when authors do that, it's very, very noticeable. So yeah, that was my only downside to this book, and I just was not a fan. So the next book was Siegen Storm, the second book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. So I read these because I really wanted to watch the show, and I wanted to read the books before I watched the show. And this book literally bored me to death. This book was like snooze fest of the century. I could not read this book fast enough at the end. Like I was literally skimming it by the end because I was like, oh my god, like I can't read this for like one more second. It was like one of those situations where it was like almost painful to read at points because I'm like, this is so boring. And I can't exactly put into words why I thought it was so boring, because I don't think it was like inherently that boring. I just don't think it worked well for me. And I actually stopped at this book and I didn't go on to the third book because I couldn't do it after this book. It was just so boring to me, and I actually liked the first book a lot. I think I gave the first book 4 stars. What is it? Shadow and Bone. And I liked that book. I thought it was really good. I liked the pacing of it. I thought she did a really good job. But with the second book, Siegen Storm, I feel like the pacing was just really, really off. And I think by the end, there was just a lot of like lull time where there wasn't a lot going on, and I just lost interest so badly that like I couldn't skim the end of the book fast enough. Like I was almost irritated that it was like kept going and going and going and going. And because of that, I never finished the third book, and then I never read Six of Crows or Crooked Kingdom, which I know are like fantastic books, and so many people rave about those 2 books, and I do want to read them eventually, hopefully someday, but because I never finished Shadow and Bone trilogy, I'm like, can I go and read like Six of Crows? I don't know. So yeah, Siegen Storm was just really difficult for me to read, just not my writing style, and it kind of made me wonder, am I going to even like Six of Crows if like Leigh Bardugo's style of writing isn't for me? But like I said, I liked the first book, so maybe I would like them, maybe I wouldn't like them, I don't know. The next book is Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. Now, this book just didn't quite do it for me. Now, this book wasn't horrible. This book definitely had okay qualities to it. I loved the kind of exploration of like your late 20s when you're kind of trying to like find your place in the world and like not really knowing what direction that you need to go in, and the state of like being frozen and just like not knowing what direction to take, not knowing what you're working for, not really having a purpose, or you know, like that purpose that you had in college where you're always like driven to get good grades and get your degree and all that kind of thing, and then you graduate and you're like, okay, like now what do I do? I thought that was a really interesting exploration like within that area of life, but there was this really weird romance in this book that really rubbed me the wrong way, and I just like don't know why. So this book basically starts out with the main character going to Las Vegas, and she ends up marrying a girl. Like she's really, really drunk. She marries a girl. She doesn't really remember it. And then she wakes up and there's a note from the girl that she married and saying like, you know, if you want to contact me, whatever. And that's kind of how the book starts. And I thought it was a really interesting way to start out the book. I'm like, oh my gosh, like what's going to happen? I thought it was going to be a really interesting premise. But what ended up happening was I could not understand this relationship. For some reason, this relationship felt so odd to me. Like they just didn't work well together. Their personalities were just too different. It felt a little on the toxic side to me. I don't really love using that word, but for some reason, this relationship just felt that way to me. Like they weren't supposed to be together. Like their relationships just didn't work. They weren't the same type of people. You know what I mean? So like I wasn't rooting for this relationship. In fact, I was like, just get rid of this girl, like divorce her or annul your marriage and then move on with your life and like figure out your own life. You know what I mean? Like that relationship just felt like it was holding her back. It was pointless. They didn't work together. And I also didn't like the writing style of this. Now, I don't necessarily hate like flowery writing. This one kind of made the wife of the main character that she married, it made her feel like the manic pixie dream girl character that like talks in like really metaphorical, poetic like dialogue that just sounds like really unrealistic. Like no one talks like that in real life, and it was over and over and over and over and over, and it kind of started to make you like roll your eyes kind of by the middle, kind of like, okay, sure lady, like get a hold of yourself. It's just not my cup of tea. Like, it's just not my cup of tea. I'm not one of those like really like emotionally like vulnerable people, and this came across as very Enneagram 4 to me, if that makes sense. Like she's trying so hard to be like this deep poetic girl. But then like the main character is like very grounded in reality type of thing. It just didn't work for me. The relationship just felt very off, and it just bothered me. The writing style bothered me, the relationship bothered me, and I just felt like it didn't make sense. Like the story didn't make sense to me. This book I gave 2 stars. It just wasn't my cup of tea. I did give it 3 stars when I first rated it, but then I lowered it down to 2 because like the more I thought about it, the more like irritated I got by it, which sometimes happens, but yeah, it just wasn't my cup of tea. So the next book that I want to talk about is Bring Me Back by B.A. Paris. This book I actually do not have anymore because I donated it because I just didn't really like it, but this book is by B.A. Paris, which like I said, I'm not a huge B.A. Paris fan because she's extremely repetitive in her writing. Every single book that I've read with B.A. Paris, one of my main complaints is that it feels really repetitive. She has like one plot driver in every story that she kind of like grabs onto, and then she'll just use it over and 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 over, and it kind of feels like she's trying to like draw the story out like longer, so her book is longer. And that was the exact same thing with this book. It was like these little Russian dolls that kept coming up, and like she kept finding these Russian dolls everywhere, and like that was fine, but like it just kept happening. Like she'd find another Russian doll, and then she'd find another one and another one and another one. It just kept happening, and I was just like, okay, can we do something else? Like I'm kind of bored with these Russian dolls. And I also didn't like the twist. The twist in this is a twist that I really don't like, and I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want to give it away if somebody wants to read this book, but it was just a twist that I'm not a huge fan of, and it just didn't seem realistic to me. Like this whole book didn't seem really super realistic to me. Like I kept rolling my eyes kind of like, that wouldn't happen, or like that's really dumb, or like it just not my thing. I don't know if I'm going to read any more B.A. Paris's work just because she's not my favorite writer. One of my biggest problems as a reader is like once I read an author, I'm familiar with that author, so I like just keep reading that author even if I'm not like a huge fan of their work. Like I know who that author is, and so like it's familiar, and so then I'll pick up another book by that author, which I need to stop doing that because there could be like tons of really great authors out there that I'm not reading because I just kind of get sucked into an author because it's a familiar author, even though I don't really like the author. You know what I'm saying? I don't know why I do that. Like Sherry Lapina is another one for me that I'm not a huge fan of her books all the time because she lacks character development. She's really good at like plot-driven stories but lacks tons of character development. But I keep picking up her books because like Sherry Lapina is a familiar name to me, so I just like pick them up, right? But it just, I don't know, it's just something as a reader I need to stop doing, and I just need to pick up some authors that I'm not super familiar with. So the next book I also do not have. I'm getting rid of all of these books, and it's why I don't have them physically, because I am getting rid of them and I've already passed them along or I've already donated them or whatever. But this book is The Honey Don't List by Christina Lauren. Hated this book. I literally could not care less about the characters in this book or the storyline of this book. It was so weirdly written because the two main characters were assistants to these TV personalities that like renovated homes, right? And so what was interesting is that they felt like assistants to the story. Like they felt like second characters to the story. Like you wanted to know more about this romantic couple, but like they were the assistants. They weren't the main characters. That's what it felt like. And so you were reading a ton about the people that were like renovating the homes, like that couple, but you didn't like this couple because they were not likable people. Like they were mean to each other. They were like cheating on each other. They weren't good people, but like they were kind of like weirdly the main character, but they weren't supposed to be the main character. The other couple were supposed to be the main character. And so it made it really weird. And every single time we'd read about like the couple that were like the renovating couple, I was like, I don't care about these people, like they're not good people, I don't really like them as people, they're very unlikable characters, and they were kind of the main focus of the story in this weird way. And like by the end, I wasn't really rooting for the assistants because I just didn't really care about them. The romance didn't like suck me in at all. There was nothing about the romance that really made me like go, oh my gosh, that's so cute. Like nothing about the romance made me excited. This book was just not a favorite at all. Like I gave this book 2 stars, wasn't a fan, and this book actually kind of turned me off to Christina Lauren a little bit. Christina Lauren used to be like my favorite writers for like romantic contemporaries, but I'm starting to be like, yeah, I don't think so. Because they wrote one of my favorite books, Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating. Freaking love that book. So yeah, not my favorite book, and I would definitely pass. So the next book is not a book that I hated necessarily, but I feel like I should put this next book in my most disappointing, because this book wasn't bad, and I want to put it on like a books I didn't like, because I did kind of like it, but I think for me this book fits more into like the most disappointing, because I had really high expectations and my expectations weren't really met with it. It wasn't horrible, but it just wasn't what I was hoping. And that is Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. Now, I know a lot of people love this, and I totally get why people would. Now, I did a whole review on this book if you want to go watch it, because I talk in like a lot of detail about this book. Like I said, I wasn't super disappointed with this book. Like, there was definitely elements of this book that I liked and I was interested in and I was like really into, but there was definitely parts of this book that I was not a fan of. And this book is extremely slow paced. And I feel like it's something that we've read before. I feel like it's not really that like interesting of a plot. It's a very simple plot. And I think that it just caught me off guard because it's such a thick book. I thought it was going to be twisted and like lots of like different things and very complicated and like stuff going on and just a very like complicated, interesting plot. But it really isn't. It's just a lot of traveling, a lot of like fighting off vampires, a little teeny bit of romance and world building. Like, that's what a lot of this book is. And I don't do well with slow books with a lot of traveling. It just felt like it had some pacing issues and it was just a little bit too simple for the length. If a book is going to be this long, like there has to be a lot going on in it, or it has to be like really interesting, really complex, and it didn't have that for me. And I was just kind of disappointed, and I definitely feel like by the end I switched to audiobook. As you can see, I have like the first whole part of this book is tabbed, and then like the last third I had to go and listen to it in audio. Like, I just couldn't finish it physically because I just couldn't stay completely focused long enough to like read it, so I had to read it audio, like the last like third of it. So yeah, it wasn't like my favorite book, but I definitely think I want to read the second book because I want to see if maybe he just put all the world building into this one, and then the second one he's going to focus more on plot. Hopefully that's the case, because I feel like most of the world building is in this one, and I think that's maybe what dragged down the pacing a little bit with this one. So it'd be kind of cool if the next one is really plot driven. I kind of hope that it is, because this one was just a little bit too slow for my personal taste. But a lot of people are obsessed with this book. A lot of people absolutely love it. It's like their favorite book of the year. So don't take just my opinion, because I definitely think I have an unpopular one. It's just, it wasn't my favorite and it didn't live up to my expectations, sadly. And the cover is so flippin' gorgeous that I still like put it out like that on my, even though I didn't love the book, I still love the cover so much that I put it out, like facing out, because I just think it's so pretty. So my worst book of the year, or the book that I disliked the most, was a book that I actually read recently called The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa. And somebody talked about this on BookTube and they were just raving about it, and it sounded really interesting. It's basically about this island where there's the memory police and things start disappearing on this island, and the memory police basically take things away on this island and people's memories start disappearing from these items. Like ribbon disappears, and then flowers disappear, and then like paper will disappear. And when all of these things disappear, people's memories of them disappear as well. Well, some people, their memories don't disappear, and if you're one of those people who still has the memories of these items, the memory police comes and takes you away. And it's basically this woman's story about living on this island and like what it's like living on this island, basically. And honestly, the premise sounded great, but this was literally, I still to this day, I just read this probably a couple weeks ago, I have no idea what the point of this book was. Zero idea. Like, there was absolutely no plot. There was no conclusion. We got zero answers. We have no idea who the memory police were, how they got rid of these items, how people's memories disappeared, what happened to the people that got taken away, why any of this stuff was happening. Like, nothing. Like, no idea about anything that happened in this book. It was basically just about this girl whose memories started disappearing, and like she didn't remember anything, and then like this relationship that she built with like her editor because she was a novelist, and then like that's it. That's all we got. There wasn't even really like a conclusion. Like, I don't even really know what the point of this book was. I feel like she was trying to like have a lesson, or like we were supposed to like take something away from this book. but I don't know what that was. I just didn't understand it. I gave this book 1 star, and I never, ever, ever, ever give books 1 star. The only time I give books 1 star is if A, they're extremely problematic, and I've only read one book that I would categorize as like extremely problematic, and I gave that book 1 star, or if I have absolutely zero care about how a book ends, which is like extremely rare. Like usually something pushes me along enough because I want to kind of like see how it ends, like where the couple goes. Are the couple going to be together? Like what's going to happen? What's the mystery? Something is keeping me reading. Did not care at all. I didn't even know what I was looking for at the end. I didn't even know what I wanted to find out at the end. Like there was nothing like holding me into the story. Nothing. Not a single thing. Because I had no idea like where the story was going. It just didn't have a plot. Honestly, this felt very much like Haruki Murakami, which is one of my favorite authors. He was my favorite author in my 20s. I loved Haruki Murakami. And this definitely has that like whimsical vibe to it that kind of, there's no plot, but like there's something still like grabbing you about it. I just feel like Haruki Murakami did it better, and there was something about Haruki Murakami's work that kind of kept me in the story and kind of kept me like wanting more. This book didn't even keep me wanting more. I have no clue what the point of this book was. So yeah, don't recommend this book. I know that it got awards and stuff like that and you might see it around, but I'm just telling you, like, read some of the 1 star reviews, maybe read some of the 5 star reviews and kind of like make your decision from there if you want to read it or not, because there are some people that did like this. I just wasn't one of those people, so yeah. So that is it. I hope I wasn't too negative in this video. Like, I don't love doing these videos because I don't want to sound too negative. Like, of course, like, I am just one person's opinion. Like, there are so many people that love these books. There are so many people that find like merit in these books or find deeper meanings in these books that they really, really love. Like, I'm just one person with one opinion that likes certain types of writing styles. So just always take my negative opinions and positive opinions with a grain of salt. So that is it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and let me know in the comments below what book was your least favorite of the year. And also don't forget to subscribe and press the bell notifications, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.